The silence between heartbeats is where the truth has been hiding all along. You have been walking through a world that felt slightly off for months now. The colors seemed dimmer. The laughter of strangers felt like an accusation. The weight of an unanswered question settled into your bones like a permanent winter. There was a space beside you that no one could fill. There was a name that hovered at the edge of your lips and was never spoken aloud. There was a story that ended too abruptly, with too many loose threads left dangling in the wind. And somewhere in the quiet hours of the night, you convinced yourself that you had imagined all of it. You told yourself that your intuition was just anxiety wearing a costume. You decided that your heart had been playing tricks on you. You chose to believe the version of events that everyone else seemed to accept so easily. But your body knew something different. Your body remembered the warmth of a hand that used to find yours in the dark. Your body remembered the way their voice softened when they said your name. Your body remembered the unspoken promises that lived in the space between two people who had found something rare and real. And now something has shifted. Not because you confronted anyone. Not because you demanded answers. Not because you went looking for evidence. But because the person who walked away so quietly has just discovered that they were living inside a nightmare they could have woken from at any moment. They found out what was done to you. They found out what was done to both of you. And right now, tonight, they are holding the proof in their hands and they cannot stop shaking. You do not know any of this yet. But it is coming toward you, and it is going to explain everything. The way you met was not the kind of story people tell at weddings. It was too ordinary and too strange at the same time. It was a Tuesday night in the middle of a storm, and you were in a laundromat because your building had no machines. The rain was coming down hard enough that the windows had gone white with it. There were only two people inside. You, and them. The dryer you had chosen kept eating your coins and giving nothing back. You had hit it twice with the side of your fist, which is not a thing you normally do, but it had been that kind of week. And a voice from the other side of the room told you that the machine on the end was the only honest one in the building. You looked up. They were sitting on a plastic chair with a paperback open on their knee, and they were smiling at you like the two of you were already old friends. They helped you move your clothes. They gave you two of their own quarters and refused to take them back. And then the power went out. The whole block went dark, and the rain got louder, and the two of you sat on the floor of a laundromat lit only by the emergency sign above the door. You talked for 3 hours. You talked about the week you were having and the year they were having. You talked about the people you had lost and the things you had never said out loud to anyone. There is something about the dark that removes all the small talk. You cannot perform when nobody can see your face. So you were simply honest instead. And when the lights came back on and the machines whirred back to life, you both sat there for a second, blinking, a little sad that it was over. That was the beginning. The beginning of something that felt like coming home. The beginning of long phone calls that lasted until the sun came up. The beginning of shared meals that stretched into shared dreams. The beginning of understanding what it feels like to be truly seen by another person. They saw you in a way that no one else ever had. They saw the fears you tried to hide. They saw the insecurities you pretended not to have. They saw the hopes you were too scared to speak out loud. And they loved all of it. They did not try to fix you. They did not try to change you. They simply sat beside you in the messiness of being human and held your hand while you figured it out. And you did the same for them. You saw their sharp edges and their soft spots. You saw their pride and their vulnerability. You saw their strength and their fear. And you loved them not in spite of those things but because of them. You had conversations that felt like prayers. You had silences that felt like communion. You had arguments that ended in laughter and apologies that ended in tears. You were building something together. Something that felt sacred. You made plans. You talked about the future. You talked about the children you might have and the places you might see. You talked about growing old together and being the two old people who still held hands in the park. It was not naive. It was not foolish. It was the kind of love that makes people believe in things they cannot see. And you believed in it with your whole heart. But then something changed. Slowly at first. Then all at once. They started pulling away. They answered your calls less often. They canceled plans with excuses that felt thin. They stopped looking at you the same way. They stopped reaching for your hand. They started looking at you with a sadness that you could not understand. And when you asked what was wrong, they said they needed time. They said they were going through something. They said it was not about you. And you believed them because you loved them. You believed them because the alternative was too painful to consider. But the distance grew. The silence between you grew thick and heavy. And eventually they ended it. They stood in front of you with eyes that would not meet yours. They said they did not think it was working. They said they needed to figure things out alone. They said it was not you, it was them. And then they walked away. And you stood in your own doorway watching them disappear, and you felt something inside you crack open. That was the moment your life split into two parts. Before they left. And after. The months that followed were some of the darkest of your life. You replayed the last conversation over and over, looking for clues you might have missed. You wondered if you had said something wrong. You wondered if you had been too much or not enough or somehow both at the same time. You analyzed every message. You examined every interaction. You drove yourself half mad trying to find the moment when everything went off the rails. Your friends told you to move on. They told you that you deserved better. And you nodded and agreed and pretended to be fine. But inside you were not fine. Inside you were trying to hold together the pieces of a heart that had been broken by a mystery you could not solve. You spent nights staring at the ceiling wondering where they were. You spent mornings checking your phone for a message that never came. You went to work. You smiled at people. You laughed at jokes that were not funny. And all the while there was a question echoing inside you that would not stop. How could someone who loved you that deeply just walk away? How could they erase you as though you had never existed? What you did not know was that they were suffering too. What you did not know was that they were living inside a prison built by somebody else. What you did not know was that someone had told them something about you that was not true. Something so convincing that it made them doubt their own judgment. Something so cruel that it made them walk away from the one person who had ever truly understood them. Someone had planted a seed of doubt in their mind and watered it with fear until it grew into a wall between you. And they were grieving the loss of you even as they were walking out the door. The person who did it is named Simone. Simone was a friend of their family. Simone had known them since they were a child. Simone had always been there, hovering at the edges, presenting herself as support while quietly wanting something else entirely. Simone never liked you. Simone never approved of the relationship. Simone saw their happiness as a threat to her own position in their life. And so Simone decided to end it. Not with a confrontation. Not with open hostility. With whispers. With carefully placed suggestions. With a photograph shown at exactly the right moment. Simone told them that you were not faithful. Simone told them that you were using them. Simone told them that you had a life they knew nothing about. And she had a picture to prove it. It was a photograph of you leaning in close to someone, laughing. Somebody from your work. A person you had mentioned once in passing and never thought about again. But in that photograph the two of you looked comfortable. You looked happy. And to somebody who did not have the context, it could have looked like something more. Your soulmate looked at that picture and felt the floor give way. They had never seen it before. They had never heard that name before. And Simone stood there beside them and said, very softly, that she was only telling them because somebody had to. They believed her. They believed her because Simone was somebody they trusted. They believed her because they were already afraid of losing you, and fear will accept almost any explanation that lets it feel prepared. They believed her because leaving first felt like the only power they had left. And so they left. Now here is what happened this week. It was not an investigation. It was not a confrontation. It was an accident. They were scrolling through their phone, half paying attention, the way anyone does at the end of a long day. And a post came up from your old workplace. An anniversary post. One of those throwback collections that companies put together to celebrate the years. And there, in the middle of the photographs, was the original. The full picture. The one that had not been cut. Because the image Simone had shown them was a crop. In the real photograph there were 17 people in that room. There were paper decorations on the wall and name tags on shirts and a folding table covered in food. You were laughing because the person beside you had just knocked over a drink. Your manager was standing directly behind you with a plate in his hand. Half the department was in the frame. It was a holiday party. It was the most ordinary photograph in the world. And Simone had taken a pair of scissors to the truth and handed them the piece that lied. Your soulmate stared at that screen for a very long time. They zoomed in. They zoomed out. They compared it to the version still saved in their messages, the one Simone had sent, and the edges lined up exactly. Same picture. Same night. cut down to 2 people and a false story. And the whole architecture of the last several months collapsed in about 4 seconds. They thought about every night they had spent convincing themselves they had done the right thing. They thought about every morning they had woken up missing you and told themselves it was weakness. They thought about the look on your face in the doorway when they said it was not you, it was them. And they understood that every single one of those moments had been built on something a woman had manufactured on purpose. The rage that came was not hot. It was cold and quiet, and it settled into their bones and made everything go very still. They put on their shoes. They drove to Simone's house. They did not call ahead. Your soulmate stood in her doorway and held up the phone with both photographs side by side. They said, "Explain this to me." Simone's face went pale. She tried to laugh. She said, "I do not know what you are showing me. It is just a picture." Your soulmate stepped closer. They said, "Do not do that. You told me this was proof. You told me they were cheating on me. You told me I needed to end it." Simone shook her head. She said, "I was trying to protect you. I was trying to show you who they really were." Your soulmate said, "There were 17 people in that room. My department was in that room. Their manager was standing right behind them. You cut everyone out and you kept the 2 people who would hurt me the most." Simone said, "I did not know the context." Your soulmate said, "You cropped it." Somebody who does not know the context does not need to crop anything. Simone started to cry. It was a theatrical cry, the kind designed to move a room. She said she was sorry. She said she never meant to hurt anyone. She said she was only ever looking out for them. Your soulmate did not move. They said, "Tell me why." And she told them. She said she was jealous. She said she had loved them for years and never said it. She said she could not stand to watch them build a life with somebody else. She said she had hoped that once you were gone, they would finally see her standing there. She said she had planned it. The photograph. The timing. The words she used and the order she used them in. She said she had made sure they would never give you another chance. Your soulmate listened to all of it. They listened to her confess. They listened to her justify it. They listened to her try to make her cruelty sound like devotion. And when she was finished, they turned around and walked out without saying another word. They did not shout. They did not break anything. They just left. Because they had heard enough to know that you had been innocent from the very beginning. They had heard enough to know that their own failure to trust you was the thing that had finished it. And they had heard enough to know that they owed you the truth, no matter what it cost them to say it. Which brings us to now. They are sitting somewhere tonight with your name in their mouth and no idea how to begin. They have rehearsed it 100 times. They have written it down and thrown it away and started over. They are terrified that you have moved on. They are terrified that you have found somebody who would never have doubted you. They are terrified that they have no right to take up one more minute of your life. And they are going to say it anyway, because you have been carrying a question that was never yours to carry. This is what they want you to hear. They want to say, none of it was your fault. Not 1 hour of it. You did nothing wrong, and there was never a moment where you were too much or not enough. The problem was never you. The problem was a lie, and my own cowardice in believing it. They want to say, somebody showed me a photograph that had been cut in half and told me a story that was not true. And instead of coming to you, instead of putting it in front of you and asking you a single question, I chose to walk away. That is the part one cannot forgive myself for. Simone lied to me, but I am the one who left. Nobody made me do that. They want to say, I remember that laundromat. I remember the storm and the broken dryer and the way you hit it like it had personally insulted you. I remember the lights going out. I remember sitting on that floor in the dark and thinking that I had never talked to anyone the way I was talking to you. I fell in love with you that night, before I knew anything about you at all. And I have been in love with you every day since, through every hour of the silence I created. They want to say, I know that finding out the truth does not give you those months back. It does not undo the nights you spent awake. It does not undo the mornings you had to convince yourself to get up. It does not undo the way I made you doubt your own worth, which is the cruelest thing I have ever done to another person. I am not telling you this so that you will feel better about me. I am telling you because you deserved the truth a long time ago and I am late. They want to say, I am not asking you to forgive me. I am not asking you to take me back. I am not asking you to make this easier for me by pretending it is all fine. Your anger is correct. Your grief is correct. Every hard thing you feel about me is fair, and I will not argue with any of it. And they want to say, if you never speak to me again, I will understand, and I will still be grateful that you existed in my life at all. But if you ever decide you want to see whether something can be rebuilt, I will spend as long as it takes proving that I am somebody who can be trusted with your heart. Not with words. With time. That is what is coming toward you. And now you have a decision to make. But before you make it, there is something you need to understand. The question in front of you is not whether they are telling the truth. They are. The question is what you actually need in order to feel safe and whole again. Because love is not enough to sustain a relationship. Trust is what sustains it. Honesty is what sustains it. Courage is what sustains it. Consistent action over a long stretch of time is what sustains it. Telling you the truth was the first step. It was not the whole staircase. You will know whether their transformation is real by watching what they do, not by listening to what they say. You will know whether their regret is genuine by observing how they treat you when there is nothing in it for them. You will know whether their love is true by seeing whether they can be patient while you heal. A person who has truly changed will not rush you. A person who has truly learned will not pressure you. A person who truly loves you will not make their guilt more urgent than your peace. They will not say that they have changed and then demand that you believe it immediately. They will not apologize and then behave as though the past has been erased by the apology. They will not tell you they love you and then repeat the exact pattern that caused the damage. Instead, they will demonstrate their growth quietly and consistently and without an audience. They will give you room to feel whatever you need to feel. They will give you time to process whatever you need to process. They will give you the freedom to decide, without guilt and without pressure. And you will need to be just as discerning about yourself. Not what you think you should want. Not what other people tell you to want. Not what your fear of being alone whispers at 2 in the morning. What you actually want. This is not about punishing them. This is not about holding on to anger until they have suffered the correct amount. This is about honoring yourself. This is about protecting your peace. This is about building a life rooted in truth. And if that life includes them, good. And if it does not, that is equally good. Because the goal was never to get back together. The goal is to be free. The goal is to be whole. The goal is to be at peace with whatever you choose. The boundaries you set now are not weapons. They are protection. They exist so that you are not so swept up in the drama of a revelation that you forget to take care of yourself. You can accept the truth of what happened without trusting anyone yet. You can accept an apology without accepting a relationship. You can love someone from a distance. You can wish them well and still keep the door closed. You can even forgive them completely and still decide that you do not want them in your life. Forgiveness and reconciliation are two different doors, and you are not required to walk through both. You do not have to decide today. You do not have to decide this month. Your healing is not on anybody else's schedule. And there is something else worth knowing. The boundaries you set now will teach them how to love you. If you rush back in before you are ready, you teach them that your limits move when they push. If you say clearly what you need and hold it gently and firmly, you teach them that you value yourself. And that lesson will make any relationship stronger. Whether it is with them or with somebody who has not even arrived yet. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to say not yet. You are allowed to say yes. But whatever you say, let it come from clarity and not from pressure. Let it come from love for yourself and not from fear of being alone again. Let it come from strength and not from exhaustion. They will tell you that they will spend the rest of their life proving they are worthy of your trust. And they may mean every word of it. But words are the cheapest thing anyone owns. Actions are the expensive part. Transformation is measured across seasons, not in a single conversation, however tearful. So watch. Wait. Observe. And let them back in only if they earn it, not because they are sorry, not because they were deceived, but because they have become somebody who is genuinely safe for you. The road ahead is not going to be easy. Rebuilding trust takes time. Healing from betrayal takes time. Letting go of the past takes time. But you have already proven you are strong. You survived the part where you did not even know what had happened to you. You rebuilt a life while carrying an unanswered question. That was the hardest version of this, and you did it alone. Everything from here is easier than that. And if you do decide to give them another chance, do it knowing that the old relationship is gone. It ended the moment they walked out the door. Anything that grows now will grow from the ashes of it, and it will have to be different. More honest. More deliberate. Built by two people who are fully grown and fully accountable. That is not a smaller love. That is a real one. The truth you now have is a gift, even though it arrived wrapped in pain. It is a gift because it has released you from the prison of not knowing. It has freed you from the endless loop of self-blame. It has shown you that your intuition was right the entire time. Your heart was right. Your body was right. That quiet feeling you kept talking yourself out of was right. You were never the problem. You were never too much. You were never unworthy. You were somebody who was lied about by a person who wanted what you had. So take a breath. Take a moment. Take all the time you need. Because you are not the same person you were when they left. You are stronger. You are wiser. You know your own worth in a way you did not before. And the greatest truth is not that they were lied to about you. The greatest truth is that you have always been worthy of a love that is honest and courageous and consistent. If something in this found you tonight, sit with it for a moment before you move on. Leave a word in the comments for the thing you are finally ready to put down. If you believe that the truth always makes its way to the surface eventually, let us know with a like, so it reaches somebody else who is still waiting for their answer. And if you want to keep walking this road, subscribe and stay with us a while. Because you are not just somebody who survived another person's lie. You are the one who gets to decide what happens next.